Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time out of your Friday night to come join us here. This is a co-sponsored legislative town hall event by the Noble Public Schools Foundation, and we also have our friends from Little Axe in the house. So I'm going to give you a quick plug for the foundation. We're going to recognize some people, introduce some people, tell you how this is going to go, and then kick it off and let it go. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Noble Public Schools Foundation, we are a nonprofit organization, and what we do is raise money for teacher grants to put much needed curriculum and extra things that we can't afford in the budget back into our classrooms. And so as you leave tonight, we've got a lot of our awesome SWAT students down here. They're going to be handing you cards, and you can go to our website and see a little bit more about what we do and join up for monthly giving if you feel led. Even $1, $3, $5 a month can make a huge difference. So let's just kind of get a feel for who is in the room. Oh, if you don't know me, my name is Erica Wright. I am president of the Noble Public Schools Foundation. If you are part of the Noble Public Schools Foundation or you are a school board member for Noble or Little Axe, please stand up. So thank you, everybody. We've got our Little Axe folks, our Noble folks. Thank you, everybody in the room. If you are a teacher in the room, please stand up. And let's everybody, like a big round of applause. Teacher and staff. If you are a parent, please stand up, of a student enrolled in Noble Public Schools or Little Axe right now. Awesome. Yay, parents. And definitely not least, but the most important people in this room are our students. So if you are a student of Noble or Little Axe, will you please stand and turn around and take a bow? Thank you. We've got lots of students here participating, which is super awesome, and we're really glad that you guys are here to help. Who's our time person? Okay, so this young lady right down here with the red folder is your time person. We'll go over that in a second. Also, I just want to also thank professional Oklahoma educators. Where are you guys in the house? We've got right here. They're here representing. And we've got Fox News 25 back here in the corner. And we also have a friend that drove all the way from Granite. How far was that? 2.5 hours. She can't get her legislators in the room, so she's here to listen to ours because they're awesome. And now, let's introduce the superstars in the hot seat. We have down here, this is Representative Danny Sterling. Danny is a graduate of Noble High School. What year?
Oh, wow. Thank you. 1974. I'm just proud.
Danny is a Noble Bear, and he has Little Axe. What communities do you represent? Tell us.
Okay, I represent the southern half of Pottawatomie County and eastern Cleveland. That's basically from Tecumseh south to towards Asher, over skirts into Wanette, bumps up against Representative Conley. Then the eastern portions of Cleveland County, which is basically all of Little Axe, eastern Moore, and eastern Norman.
So that's a pretty big district. He also technically has a teeny tiny little bit of footprint in Noble, so we count him as one of ours so we can go bug him when we're up there. And then we have Representative Conley. Would you like to introduce yourself to the group?
Hi, thank you for having me here today. I represent most of Newcastle, a little bit of Blanchard, some of Noble, Lexington, a little bit of Purcell, Pauls Valley, all the way down, not into the town of Wynnewood, but it goes down and touches the town of Wynnewood.
Possibly the largest house district in the state. Yeah. It's really big. Okay, thank you, Sherry, for being here. We're always grateful. We have some really engaged representatives and senators for this district. We're very fortunate. So Jacob, tell us hello and tell them who you represent.
Yeah, I'm Representative Jacob Rosecrans. I represent Noble.
Bears.
The whole downtown part. It's very strange. And West Norman. Let's just throw that in there real quick, too. No, but Noble, I'm proud to be here since 2017. Whoa, this thing picks it up. Got that teacher voice, so I have to kind of watch it out. But I'm really happy to see all y'all out here. Happy to go over anything that we've learned and really just want to hear your questions. So thank you all so much for coming out. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jacob. Mary Boren, Senator Mary Boren.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here. I'm excited to talk about this topic. When I first ran, I was real curious about how folks felt about that and how it was doing, and I kind of had some biases and preconceived ideas, but when I walked out here and started listening and talked to Frank Solomon and the faculty and parents and students, it really changed my mind. So I love to see what happens when we listen to each other, and I feel like this is a wonderful exercise for democracy, for us to actually listen and to hear each other and hear each other's hearts and minds on how the future that we hope to have for our kids. So I'm very grateful to be here.
Thank you, Senator Boren. And Senator Boren covers Noble, Norman, and Lexington. Parts of Noble. We've got Noble is kind of cut up into a whole lot of pies, if you hadn't noticed. And so now we have Senator Rob Standridge. We're really glad that you're here with us today, too. And so why don't you tell them a little bit about the area you represent?
Sure. Thank you, Erica. Thanks for inviting me here this evening, and thanks to everybody for being here. This is awesome. Good crowd. I represent Cleveland, about half of Cleveland County, some of Oklahoma County. University of Oklahoma is in my district. Much of Norman is in my district. School districts in my district might be more interested, would be Norman is probably the largest school district, Moore School District, Oklahoma City School District, Middale Schools, Little Axe Schools. Is Rose?
Noble.
Oh, absolutely. I was getting there, but I was just trying to think if Rosedale is its own school, or I can't remember if that's its own district. But yeah, absolutely Noble. In fact, actually the Noble has a very personal connection to me. Where is my lovely wife at?
Way back there in the back.
In the very back, right. Okay. Well, and I know there's another person on this table that has an opinion about the Idleman, so I don't want to go into too much detail. But anyway, I was very proud to have, when I first got into pharmacy school, got a job at Noble Pharmacy, and met the woman of my dreams back there in the back of the room. So, and she's an Idleman from Noble, so I always try to pay attention. I apologize if I don't make as many meetings, but with all the district and all the school and all the responsibilities I have at the Capitol, I don't make them all, but I definitely pay attention, and am honored to be here and look forward to questions and discussion.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So Lisa, his wife Lisa, graduated in the class of '89 with Scott and Candy back there, and Kim Adams. Okay, so I'm going to tell you really quickly what to expect and how this is going to go, and then I'm going to shut up and get off stage and let you guys do your thing. So if you did not get to submit a question, we do have cards and pens down here. So the questions have been sorted by topic. This is Aisha Prather and Missy Berry. They are our sorters for tonight. And so what will happen is they will run the first question up here. This is Kristen Caruso. She's Vice President of Noble Public Schools Foundation. She is going to be our moderator this evening. So she will ask a question. And then each candidate, or not candidate, sorry, I'm used to doing election forms. Each one of our legislators, which I guess are also candidates at some point, will have 3 minutes to answer that question. So that's where this young lady comes in. When she holds up yellow, that means you have 1 minute left to go. And then when she holds up red, that means okay? So once we start the question part, then they'll ask the question, they'll have 3 minutes each to answer, and then we'll have a microphone on either side. If you have a question that you want asked for clarification, or you have a follow-up question, you heard something in their answer that you need to know more about, raise your hand. We'll bring you the microphone, and then we'll start over with 3 minutes. You can ask a specific person up here a question, or you can ask it for the whole panel. Okay, so that's how this is going to roll. And then once we get through that topic, we'll move to the next question. And we're going to start with the most popular topic of questions submitted and move on from there. Cool? Okay, so the other thing is that we want to make sure, I know we're all very passionate about a lot of these questions that we have and a lot of the issues at hand right now that are facing both of our communities, okay? But we need to make sure that in our passion we also stay respectful. So I'm asking you that because we're going to be handing you microphones, which we've never done that before, to just please keep that in mind, to remain professional and welcoming to all of our legislators that are here as well. They've taken their time to come and visit with us, so we need to be nice. Okay, so that's kind of how this is going to roll. So now for the first part of this, we're going to let them tell us a little bit about, each one of you will have 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes. You don't have to take the whole time, but you'll have up to 5 minutes to share with the audience about the legislation that you are going to be presenting this session and what your personal goals are for the legislative session. So, with that, you want to go first?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, I will hand.
Thank you again, twice in a row. You're like, okay, Rob's met his limit. So this session, I'm very excited about this session. I always file a lot of bills, and I do that because I have a lot of meetings. So in fact, I just came from 2 different meetings today with constituents about various issues that concerns them. Not sure if a bill will come out of those, but I file bills because constituents call me with concerns, they call me with issues, and they meet with me. I even see some friends in the audience that have met with me a couple times. But so this session, but education, since we're here talking about education, let me talk about that a little bit. I don't really run a lot of bills on education because I'm a health guy, but I am in leadership. I've been in leadership since elected, which is very unusual. Most of the time it takes several years to accomplish that, and I'm very proud of that. So I leverage that for my constituents. So whenever you ask me to do something, I take it there. Or if one of my colleagues asks me to do something that's in my district, I do it for them. And so I take advantage of the position that I have to try to help people. I really, really, truly do. And I take a lot of pride in that, and I'm honored to be able to do that. So this year, I don't have a lot of education, so the one I'm going to talk about really, it's going to sound like I'm trying to take credit, but I want to make it clear that this wasn't my idea. In fact, it's really the idea of one of my colleagues here on the bench, Representative Rosecrans, Jacob, is a former teacher, has a lot of knowledge in education, and when he came into the House, he started talking to me about, because I'm his senator, he's my representative, so I think his natural inclination is we ought to try to do some things together in a bipartisan fashion. I've always appreciated that. So I'm not trying to butter him up. I'm just telling you that this idea is really because he's tried to tell me I'm wrong for a while, and so I've tried to come to the conclusion that maybe I am on this. So it's called the Teacher Retention Act. At the end of the day, it may not be the bill that ends, but that succeeds at the finish line, but my hope is that maybe my efforts will help the overall go. So for those teachers in the audience, and Jacob, do you have a bill on that this session? Because I don't want to talk about the details.
No, it's okay. You can. I mean, if it's your bill, I mean, I have one, but I don't think it's going to.
Okay, so you got something else you're going to talk about? Okay, so I think I've given him enough credit on it, so I can talk about it. So really, what it is, I guess, National Board Certified. Does anybody here know what that is? Any educators in the audience? Good. Okay, good, because you already know more than I do. Probably just raise your hand.
National Board Certified Teachers in the audience.
Yeah.
Do they? Okay. So anyway, so my thought was this has always been kind of the legislature really hasn't supported this for quite a number of years. And so when I first started thinking, well, I think I want to help on that, and because that sounds like a reasonable deal and way to keep our best and brightest in Oklahoma. And so my bill, without getting into the weeds, is really an attempt to try to find a way to get it through, to use my position to help in that. And so that's one, education, but domestic violence is another area I'm very passionate about. I have a number of domestic violence bills. I have the DHS waiting list, DDSD waiting list is very long, so I have a bill to try to find a way around that. I'm a huge proponent of nonprofits, and so I have a bill. I also have a bill considering nonprofits. I'm a huge fan. I think in Cleveland County we have a great nonprofit base, but Griffin Hospital, I enabled them a few years ago to sell their property. Now I'm going to ask them to reserve some property for nonprofits. That's going to be a tough battle of mine this session. Probably my biggest battle this session, sadly, is going to be against a proposal at the Capitol, and that is to sell off our Medicaid system to private insurers. I think the governor announced that recently. Not everybody can be right about everything, but I'm not in agreement with that idea, and I think that's important. I've got a number of bills around public safety. I have a number of bills around health care, lots of bills around health care. So anything you have, I mean, I don't know if you probably didn't read through my list of 50 bills, but there's something that's of interest to you, I'd be glad to visit with you here or after, or call me, Panera Bread. You'll see me there almost every day meeting with somebody, so I'm always happy to meet with folks. And where am I at on time? Do I still have more time? How much? Oh, well, let's take another minute. Let me think what else I'm doing. So I mentioned the leadership, so I want to mention this because I think this is something I didn't know anything about before I got in the legislature. It's something I talk about sometimes. So what happens in the Senate and the House is you have, and my colleagues here haven't been there very long, so I didn't get into this till my third year, so with all due respect to them, I mean, I'm sure they're headed that way. But So what happens is we have the big room where you see all the guys that's fighting on the floors of the House and Senate and arguing. Well, you have a smaller room that I learned after I got elected where we kind of map out what we're going to do. Obviously, everybody has to approve of it, but that's where I can take your ideas, your thoughts, your concerns into a smaller room. And so I had to run for that. So first I ran for office, but then when I get in, I got to run for other offices. So I found that kind of interesting. I think it's kind of interesting. And so something I didn't know. But anyway, I see she's holding the red. So thank you very much. And I'll defer the no remaining time to Senator Bourne.
Thank you. Always love getting to hear all the bills that he files. He files a lot more than I do because he has more people to help him get passed. Because I'm a Democrat and there's 9 on my caucus, getting bills passed is a whole different experience for me than it is him. So I also admire all those things that he supports and I've learned from Jacob about how to lend bipartisan support. So that's what I'm looking forward to doing this session more, is to find bills that are being carried across the aisle that I really admire. I've started talking to legislators about those bills of how they're doing them and what they have in mind. And so I hope to be able to lend more of my support for that. One bill that I filed this year, I did do a press release on, and it was to stop using school counselors for testing, building test coordinators. You're welcome. A lot of you know that I was a school counselor, and you go into school counseling to help kids, and you all know that Oklahoma has a huge unmet mental health need for young people across the state, and I see the school counselor as a mental health resource. It's a tool to help with mental health. And when you use that tool to go over and upload data on a computer to make sure all the computers are working on test day, to me, it's taking a mental health resource and turning it into a mental health trauma because testing is trauma. So I'm being a little bit exaggerating on that one, but it felt like for me that I'm supposed to be helping kids, but then with one hand, but with the other hand, I'm actually doing things that cause anxiety and cause stress, along with other issues which I won't go into now, but I can get in a pretty good radio rant against testing, which I'll spare you all from that. So that is a bill that I hope gets some traction. I also hope it causes a conversation to have. I know that the State Department of Education this is the second year that they want to increase school counselors by 3,000, and they call it the School Counselor Corps. And my question in response to that is, well, if you get more counselors and you're just going to use them for administrative purposes or reallocate them to some other role, then what use is that? And if we have the opportunity now to make sure that 100% of the school counselor time is used for mental health support or other social support, and protect them from being used for other things, then isn't that actually increasing our access to school counselors within a school? When I was a school counselor at Norman at Adams Elementary, high ELL, high poverty school, we did a time analysis on our contracts for school counselors throughout the district. And at the end of the year, we realized that 6 weeks of my time was spent on testing. And a lot of people say, well, the window's only 3 weeks, but people don't understand all the stuff you have to do before it, all the stuff you have to do after it. So I hope it starts a conversation to protect the mental health resource of school counselors. I'm open-minded to other things, but I do have my heels dug in that if it's a mental health resource for kids, as a child advocate, we need to protect that resource and then find other resources to deal with the administrative burden of testing. The other thing that I've seen when I ran for office, I said our schools would be fully funded if we shift power from billionaires to Oklahomans. And so another thing I do is I train and support and teach and guide people at the Capitol. So if any of you come to the Capitol, I'll show you the ropes. I'll show you how to And yeah, Bev is even nodding her head there because she did that with me. So, and I've had teachers and different people come to my office, and I'll show them how to do things. So I'll show them how to get their legislator off the floor and to be able to talk to them, how to track a bill. So if any of you want that support, please contact me. I'm at maryboren.com. I'm really willing to do that. And since I don't have the leadership positions that Senator Standridge does, I have a lot of time on my hands, so I can kind of do that kind of work for people, and I really enjoy doing it.
Wow.
Thank you.
I was enthralled. I was listening. Again, thank you so much for coming out here. I've been up there since 2017, like I said before, and I think the best teacher is experience. I try to tell people that all the time. When I first got in there, I was teaching 8th grade Yorktown, I believe. I got elected, and then a special session was called the next week, and I literally was just like, what? And it was a $2.3 billion budget hole or something like that. So I've been through kind of the ringer. I mean, it really has been kind of tough. Last year was much more, I'd say, saw a lot more bipartisan cooperation with many of my colleagues up here on both sides of the rotunda. And it's just really great to see, because whenever I was running for office the first time, that was what I really wanted to see. I try to have conversations with anybody. I try to look, I don't care about R, I don't care about D, I don't care about I, whatever you want to put behind there. I care about what you have to say, and that's what I try to do to the best of my ability, especially here in Noble. About my bills, first of all, I'm excited that Rob here has listened. Thank you. About National Board Certified Teachers. I ran a bill to bring back the $5,000 stipend my first year I was elected, so it's really neat to see it kind of catch on. And that's kind of what we do here. Yeah, I'm in the minority party, but that's what we do. We keep that conversation going, and then we make sure that we're still at the table when it comes down to it. So it's good to see that. And on my side, too, there's a National Board Certified Teacher in the House as well, Bill. So that has a pretty good chance. I've talked to some of the members of the kind of higher up towards the governors, not all the way up there, but kind of up there, and they actually know what that is too. That's a big step in the right direction. So that's not my bill anymore, though. Yeah, it is what it is. I am a statesman. I really don't care. What I am running this year, I have a few. There's about 4 I want to talk about. It's something has come to my attention, and along with Representative Conley here, we're running something called the Play-Based Learning Initiative. And what that is exactly what it sounds like. It's an initiative, it's a start, to have a refocus on play in the early childhood education classroom as the most important and best way to learn. You can attach that to STEM, STEAM learning, whatever you want to call it. If you want to have these engineering jobs that everybody's clamoring for, well, you better teach the kids to do a lot more than just stare at a screen. And I just got very passionate about that. It came from Facebook at first. I started a work group, and this thing grew and grew and grew. So the bill itself is written by a work group of educators from all around the state, higher education professionals from UCO, OCU, OSU, OU, some others too, like 17 of them. And we all came together with this, and I presented it as a bill. It's House Bill 2794. I'm really pushing for it. I think it's worth the time for sure. You're going to see me talk a lot about that. I'm going to be all over the place. Literally, Wednesday, I'll be going, it's called the Global School Play Day. I'll be all over the state trying to put a spotlight on kind of the importance of that. I really think that's the best way to learn, hands-on. I was a teacher before I was elected, and I was called into my principal's office way, way, way more than my own kids because I was rebelling. I was like, no, I am not going to give this benchmark again. They already know. So I finally just, ran for office. So it's what I'm doing. I ran to try to end the test, the standardized test especially. That's a federal thing. And so I have to be appointed in Betsy DeVos's seat. So got to aim a little higher, I guess. Some of my other bills, I talked to members. Wow, I have lots to talk about here. Let's go through it real quick. School Resource Officer Mental Health Training. I talked to some people at Norman Police Department And those SROs that we have there, 85% of their calls are mental health related with at the schools, and they don't have the training. So they have requested me to run a bill to require training. It's not easy because we're in a flat budget, and I've got to find some way to do it low or no cost, and that's what I'm working on right now. Also of note, a constituent has asked me to run a bill to recognize the second week of October as the Veteran Suicide Awareness Week. This is in honor of her son, Damian Eckstein, who was a U.S. Army veteran of the Iraq War, and he died by suicide in 2013. And so I'm working with the Veterans Caucus at the Capitol on that bill as well, to bring a massive focus once again on such an important issue. And that's pretty much what I've got going on. Thank you so much.
Am I talking about me? I'm just talking about my bills, right? Yeah. No, it's about my bills. Thank you again to the foundation for having us here tonight. I am excited to talk about the legislation that I'm working on. I've got 4 education bills that I'm really working very hard on. 2 of them are dyslexia and 2 of them are phonics bills. One of them is dyslexia training for teacher candidates coming out of the colleges, and then also for dyslexia therapists or academic language therapists to be in all the schools so that we can target that disability that we really have not been focusing on here in Oklahoma. I've kind of taken some legislation and some cues from a couple of other states that have already started pioneering that trail. Arizona and Oregon have both worked really hard on their dyslexia legislation. And so hopefully Oklahoma will be number 3. Then I've got 2 bills that are related to phonics, and that is phonics training for teachers coming out of college so that they know exactly what to do from day one. I see teachers back there nodding their heads. Yeah, I want to make sure that the day one they a teacher steps into a kindergarten through 3rd or 5th, even 5th grade classroom, that when they get that box of phonics, that they open it up and they know exactly what to do, that there's no question. They don't have to go to training through the vendor or anybody else, that they know what they're doing. I feel like phonics is one of those things that we've gotten away from across the country, and it has really hurt our literacy levels here in the state. And so I have done a lot of research and a lot of talking to special ed teachers and dyslexia people and phonics people, and this is what they're saying. And so I wanted to make sure that we had that in the state of Oklahoma, that teachers were trained. My other one is a little bit controversial, and it's sitting in the A&B, which is, Appropriations and Budget Committee. I really am kind of worried that it might not get out, but I've got to go and educate the members of the committee to make sure that they realize that, okay, I got to tell you what it is first, sorry. It is, phonics is, I want it to be a required course that is taught in every kindergarten through 5th grade classroom across the state of Oklahoma, that you can't get some curriculum coordinator to come into the district and change what you're doing to a whole language or something that, you know, is not going to teach kids how to read. If we work on phonics, phonics is actually good for every learner, including the kids with dyslexia. And so I felt like that was something that was very important for us to do and make it to where it was a mandate with the state. And so that's where A&B comes in, that the Chairman Wallace, looked at that and said, okay, well, that's going to take funding. But the truth of it is that our RSA money can pay for that, and also our textbook money can pay for that. And so we have funding in place to make sure that we have the funds that we need and that you all need as educators and administrators to take care of the paying for that. So that's my 4 education. I have a bill. It's a request bill from the family in Lexington that lost their son on the junior high football field. And this is one that is pretty close to my heart. My son played football, and so I would have wanted somebody there to take care of my son if he ended up with concussion one night, so I totally get that, and nobody there to take care of him. And so we want to make sure that there is some type of emergency personnel at the junior high and high school football games. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to pay for that person. If somebody will volunteer that's off-duty ambulance person or someone trained, if you've got somebody in your community, it doesn't have to be a paid position. And so I just want to make sure that kids they have the services that they need if they get hurt on the field. Also, I have a DOC bill, which I've got 2 prisons in my district, and so I felt like this was important, that someone who changes jobs, if they have a commission to carry a firearm and they move to a position that's not commissioned, I want to give them the opportunity to be able to keep that commission in case of situations like what we've seen, riots and lockdowns and things like that. And that was a request bill from DOC. I also have a request bill from another constituent. Oh, sorry, I'm done. Maybe ask me and I'll finish. It's an interesting one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative Conley. Well, as you can see, there's a lot of diversity of the bills that's going to be presented this year in the session. First of all, I'd just like to say it feels good to be back in my old home stomping grounds. For some of you students that know Mr. Cadell, I remember when he looked like you age-wise. So, like I say, we've been around a while, haven't we, sir? But anyway, I'm very excited about starting my second year in the legislature. It's been a fast and furious whirlwind. I'm still learning as we move forward. There's a lot to learn, and I think some of the senior legislators have said, it takes about 4 or 5 years to really get your feet on the ground, and I really believe it. Just give you a little bit of a background of where I came from. I am a former teacher, principal. Served 40 years in Tecumseh Public Schools there as an ag teacher, then retired as the high school principal there. Using a lot of that, I told people a lot of that experience I gained there as a teacher and a principal served me well in preparing me to be a legislator. Just multiple reasons, we won't get into all of those, but it did really serve me well. And like I say, I'm taking a lot of those experiences that I had in those positions, both from the teaching standpoint and the principal standpoint, and applying them in this job that I have now. Just give you a little bit of background on my responsibilities just beside being a legislator. The committees that I serve on are the Common Education Committee, Agricultural Committee, and I'm Vice Chair of Judiciary. Don't ask me how an educator became Vice Chair of Judiciary, but somehow I did. And with those, some of those things that some of the committees I'm on with that background, it kind of dictated some of the bills that I'm working with. When I ran for office, I said, I'm going to listen to my constituents. A lot of my bills are constituent driven. That's where they were derived from. And I'm a firm believer in that. Listen to people who sent you there and make sure you do what's best for your constituent, your district, but most importantly, what's best for our state. And I try to do that every day in that job. I take that very seriously. I found out one thing, as being a legislator, there's not a perfect bill. There's always a lot of unintended consequences that we can't foresee sometimes, so we put them in place. So if you wonder, why in the world did those people pass that bill? Well, lots of times it sounded great. How many times you heard, man, that sounds great on paper? Well, when you put it in practice, sometimes it doesn't work out. Let me go ahead and get into some of the bills that I'm authoring. 2 of these are I sat them on the Agricultural Committee. 2 of these are livestock related. One of those will be cattle that are sold at terminal markets, trying to maybe create some data so if somebody has stolen those cattle, they will show up in some background database to hopefully track those animals down. Another one would be maybe create an agency within the Attorney General's office to assist the Oklahoma Cattlemen's Association in tracking down some theft of cattle as well. Another one that was constituent driven is, I call it my pet bill. We've all heard of the, not my pet bill personally, but about pets. We all have heard of horrible situations or tragic situations where young children have been trapped in cars, and they can't get out, especially in the summertime, when the windows are up. Parents most of the time, and just simply forgot they were there. This bill would basically allow police officers to use their discretion if they need to break in because a pet is in the same situation. So again, that is a bill that we're looking at, be hearing actually in the Judiciary Committee Tuesday. Oh, I gotta get after it. A couple of the other ones, I'm just going to bypass one of these. One of them I'm very adamant about is one I call the Shelby Johnson Logan Deerdorf bill. This would require physicians to report to the Department of Public Safety anybody that has a medical condition such as seizures to be reported to the DPS. Physicians would have to report them. 2 young students, when I was a principal, they were sophomores, and just last year they were killed by a gentleman, had a seizure. They were sitting at a stoplight and he hit them, they said approximately 118 miles an hour. And of course, the only good part about that, they didn't know what hit them. A carryover bill that I have, House Bill 1051, would require more stringent rules for physical education in schools. We're getting a lot of support, a lot of traction on that. I have a lot of information here as far as the statistics and why that's important. Thank you. If you'd like to talk to me more, I will talk to you more about that later.
It is past 5, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay, our first question is, what are you hearing about the rumor that if there are no rules approved by 2021-22 school year, that it will eliminate all waivers on Senate Bill 441? Senator Standridge, we'll start with you.
Sure. Yes, I think Erica had, I think Senator Bourne might have sent me something first, sorry.
I did, yeah.
Senator
Well,
Bourne
she
had-
sent it to me and I sent it to you.
Yeah, and I saw Representative Connolly's name in there as well, so just to spread that around a little bit. So I appreciate that. I think, who was it that talked a minute ago about unintended consequences? Representative Sterling. When you look closely at the bill, and I had legal staff look at that thoroughly, it definitely looks like if we don't approve something, so we need to have. You know what? I think that Senator Bourne, I think your analysis of it was pretty good. That it just, and Connolly, I think it just, if you don't approve something, it defaults to not allowing any exception. Does it? But what I'm sitting here thinking about, does it default to 180 or does it default to the 165? Do you remember?
As far as I think. Right now we have competing lawyers, different legal interpretations. We have one from the OSSBA, and the AG's office is saying one thing, and then we have other lawyers that have said, no, wait a minute. I think after I've listened to all of it, is we have a lot of time. We're talking about 18 months to 2 years out, 2 sessions to fix this. So if we don't approve the rules, or the rules don't come for approval, then we have 2 sessions to either eliminate the rulemaking need or correct it in legislation.
That's kind of what the last word that I heard. Okay.
Yeah. So that's my understanding of where we are right now, which makes it good and bad to have 2 sessions to untangle a mess. Is at the legislature is very tempting, because then people will tie other things to that and make it more complicated than it probably necessarily has to be. But knowing that people are active and vocal really makes our job so much easier, because especially I think with Senator Standridge, when he goes into leadership meetings, for him to say, hey guys, I went to a town hall on a Friday night and 100 people showed up and they're serious about this, that gives him so much more credibility in those meetings than if he's having to fight this all by himself. So
We
thank
need
you for being here.
cheerleaders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
what they said. I mean, that's true. That's what it is. I mean, that literally is perfectly explained. So that question has been answered. Honestly.
Excellent.
Unless you want to add anything.
No, I think
Yeah.
you guys nailed it.
Clear as mud, isn't it?
It is.
All right, do we have any follow-up questions?
Okay, so this is kind of a question and kind of just clarification for those of you who may not have understood the question. So Senate Bill 441 is our 4-day school week thing, and they're voting on, the State Department has come out with the rules that they think are fair. A lot of us disagree with those rules, and so there was some question on whether if they vote no against those rules, if it goes back to the State Department to start over, or if just nobody gets a waiver and we all have to go 165 or 180 days. So for those of you who didn't understand the question, that's what they were talking about. So I just wanted to clarify, so what I'm hearing from you guys is that we don't really know for sure, but we think that we've got enough time to figure it out. And do you have any, so my follow-up question is, do you have any ideas about how that should play out?
So there's a couple of things that we could do, yeah. We could vote yes on the current bill, the way it stands. We could vote no, and hopefully get the votes that we need to, kill those rules, and then take the opportunity to, for example, we have something in the House. The Senate doesn't have this, but we have something called a shell bill. And what that is just, it's kind of like a placeholder that says, I may have the intention to file something later on down the line, and it has to be in the title, which is Title 70 for education. And I just happen to have a couple of those sitting waiting, where we could say, okay, instead of, with the intent of killing the bills for this session, we could file legislation that would change what we are requesting, that we could file legislation that would be the version of the rules that we would like to see, and then hopefully try to gain support from enough people, which would be 51 in the House, and how many do you need over there? 26 in the Senate, in order to be able to pass a new set of rules. So that would be, it's kind of something that I'm looking at, being able to do is just say, okay, here's the rules that we really want, and just drop that language in there and try to get that passed. There's no guarantee. And if we don't do that, then we might have to file something next year, and we still have the opportunity to do that, to try to get those changed if those actually do get passed.
And I'd just like to say, I'm not going to steal Representative Connolly's thunder, because she came up with some very logical things that would fit in that shell bill. I'll leave that up to her. She'd like to elaborate on those. But we do have a plan, but as you can see, it's a very slippery slope that we're walking on right now. We want to make sure we don't eliminate the possibility of keeping the 4-day schools in place, but at the same time, it's a moving target. It's very fluid right now. As again, we're having to take it day by day, but it is on our radar very much so.
I have a follow-up question for that. I just want to know, can you hear me?
Yeah, just 1 second.
Would you mind? I'm sorry. Representative Connolly was telling me, or telling us some thoughts yesterday. She's not a member of the Noble Mafia, I don't think. It was a good Noble Mafia idea. But I'll leave it to her. I would recommend not really going public too much on that until we get time, but it's an exceptional idea, I think. Anyway, if you would allow, Eric, I mean, you were kind of involved in the dialogue last session. This is a Senate deal, and kind of, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to let you know kind of how we got here. I'll try to make it as brief as possible. So the legislative process is, they don't call it a sausage factory for nothing. So the way Senate Bill 441 was born is kind of very unusual. So I'm coming up on my 8th year in the Senate, and every year the Senate, except for this year, bizarrely enough, every year the Senate comes up with an agenda. I was not on the agenda committee, so we set up a committee that creates an agenda. For the first time in the history I've been in the Senate last year, we came up with 2 of 4 agenda items, 2 of which were not unanimous. That's the first time ever. I mean, within our caucus. So Democrats, let me just speak about the Republican caucus. Democrat caucus has their own agenda, but just for the Republican caucus, they've always been unanimous. So this year we had 4 items, 2 unanimous, 2 a little bit divisive. And one of those divisive ones was the 4-day school week. So I wasn't on the agenda committee, so we came up with those 4 items. Well, when you come up with 4 agenda items, or any agenda items, as I told Erica last session, good luck stopping those. It's like a freight train. So once the agenda item is set for the majority party, it's kind of a downhill slide both in the House and the Senate, typically. I was disappointed with that. I was disappointed with the other one. It's just, if you're curious, the other one is to get rid of all the populist control of our agencies, and I don't agree with that either. But anyway, I digress. The 4-day school week was a problem. So I'm neither on education committee nor on the agenda committee. So when it came out of the education committee, it was pretty. It was a much more blanket approach. It wasn't anything like the bill we have today. And I was not on the negotiating committee because I'm not on the education committee. But at Erica's behest and a few others, I interjected because the author of that bill is one of my best friends in the legislature, so I interjected. So the way we got here was some of us, like myself, tried to pare down the education committee's result in this bill. Now, the end result, probably weren't that happy with, but it was certainly better than the beginning result. And I will definitely speak on how we ended up with these rules. I think I said this today publicly, but anyway, I'm not real happy with those. But and maybe that'll pop up with a question, so I don't want to spoil that. But anyway, I just thought it might be curious to know how we got to that, and so I find it kind of interesting. It's different.
Okay, my follow-up is, I just wanted to know if you guys are aware that with the time constraint of this, we do not have 2 legislative sessions. State mandates schools to submit their calendar to the State Board of Education by October 15th of every year. So coming this October 15th is when every school in the state has to have already submitted their calendar for academic year 21-22. So we have 1 session.
That's good to know. Thank you. When you talk about these things, we can get way down into like trying to describe a chess match. The pawn goes here and the queen goes there and the king goes here. But if we do it this way, and it can become very fatiguing. So I think it's good to know that kind of stuff, because then the timeline can kind of go accordingly. And I'll stop talking, but I did see that. So anyway.
Did we have another follow-up?
Yes. Can you hear me? My question on that is just during this 1 session, are we continuing with our 4-day week, or are we being forced into a 5-day week where we'll go back to a 4-day week if things go our way after the session?
Are you talking about right now?
Are you talking about for this coming school year? Or?
Like the one coming up right now? Well, I don't think it would affect that.
Yeah.
It would be the one after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it won't affect this coming fall and spring. Be the one after.
Yep.
Any other follow-up?
This is for the Senator Standridge. Senator Standridge, my question is, why did your body think that it was a good idea to give it to the state board? And they're good people, but they're not elected officials. And it also limits direct access for the citizens that this really does affect across the state. And so I would like to see it where the legislative body has complete control of these rules.
Thank you. And by the way, you worked harder than anybody else at the Capitol on this issue last year, so thank you for your hard work. Well, you and Erica, sorry. Erica was up there a lot too. But anyway, last year, that didn't seem to be, once it came out, I mean, I didn't to be honest with you, know where I sit. I'm not on those committees. So, and so by the time I got a hold of the vehicle, there wasn't any option. So, and I know Eric had expressed some question or concern on that, but after it had come out, I don't know if I don't think, I would defer to your judgment. I really don't know. I would assume if I'm not an education person, that we could trust the State Department of Education, and since they're assuming all interested in education, that they would get together and have good feedback and stakeholders and all of that. What I'm seeing back before, but as I see the result, the product, it's kind of like, if I ask my team to write a piece of software and I assume they're doing a good job and everything, and at the end of 6 months I get this and say, what the heck have you spent 6 months doing? This is crap, I can't sell this. That's essentially what we got here. But up front, I would have made the assumption that that would have been almost a preferable avenue than leaving it up to a bunch of politicians to decide what's the best. I mean, honestly, Ginger, that's what I would think. But looking at the end results, I would say that you were right. But you know what I'm saying. So I think a lot of legislators are probably thinking like me, that who better? Why trust a bunch of politicians that don't know much about education? I mean, with the exception of obviously some fine folks here, but as a whole, we're deferring, just like I'm not an engineer, so I typically don't I have an engineering bill, but I'm deferring to engineers on the language to put in there. So, I mean, it's an excellent point. And maybe we should go that direction. Maybe that's one of the solutions for this session. So, yeah, we have some, I think some people that put some really good thought on this stage in that issue. I defer to them. So if I can help them, that's what I feel like my role is here.
I want to say something in response to that, but I want to yield to you if y'all have anything. Okay. I think it's fair. You would like to hope that working with the state agency is going to take in all voices, but I think what we underestimate is how politics can get through agencies as well, and how agendas can get through agencies as well. It was very helpful, Senator Standridge, to hear that the Republican caucus was divided on the 4-day, because
maybe I shouldn't have said that.
No, that's actually very helpful, because that kind of makes sense to me, because I know that there are a lot of rural senators, and I was sitting over there like, why are they voting this way? This makes no sense, because I knew that they had so many 4-day schools in their district. Now that I know that this was an agenda item that was divided from the beginning, that kind of makes more sense. Well, from the State Department of Ed view, I'm thinking that they were of the side of the agenda that this was getting rid of 4 days school weeks was a good plan for Oklahoma for whatever reason. I think it's very consistent with the State Chamber of Commerce's agenda, and we see that overlap within the majority caucus, that they're all together on the same page, but if there is a division, it tends to be the State Chamber wants one thing, and rural Oklahoma and Main Street need something else. And you see that same pattern happening every year. So for the State Department of Ed to be aligned with one of those particular perspectives is what I think we're all starting to see, and that's what we saw. The thing that was the most revealing of this for me personally was when I got feedback from Superintendent Solomon about his participation in the task force or the rulemaking process, and I started hearing how people felt and how their ideas were viewed, and then the press release that I listened to, the press conference that was held by the 4-Day Coalition, it started coming back that voices were going to those rulemaking meetings, but those voices were not being listened to. And that's when the trust starts breaking down. So you go in hopeful that voices are going to be heard, but then through that process you start seeing those power struggles happening, and who's on what end of the rope and who has more influence. But the good news is all of you showed up. The 4-Day School Coalition is talking and voicing your concerns, and it's working, and you're getting the attention of the lawmakers in the rural caucus, and now they have backup that they needed. So I think the end result will reflect what Oklahomans want, not one lobbyist or one particular group in Oklahoma. So that's good news to me.
Yeah, I think the issue here is making sure that we have enough people that are the voters in the legislature, that they understand why this is such an issue. Again, like Senator Boren said, you know, this is, it feels like an attack on rural Oklahoma. It feels like an attack on teachers and on administrators and school leaders and school boards, when what we want is local control. We want to have control over our calendars, what meets the needs of our students and our families, and bottom line, that if you are from some place other than Noble or Newcastle, Oklahoma, you have no idea what that community needs, wants, or what works for them. And so, yeah, thanks. Yeah, I want to see more of those that voted in favor of 441 come back to the table and make that decision to say, you know what, I was wrong, and I should have listened better. Senator Standridge, I love that he says, you know, that's not my wheelhouse. It's not, you know, where my expertise is. And I will tell you, I had a conversation with Senator Quinn during the interim, and I said, you know, I wished that I would have known you prior to you filing 441 and doing all the pushing that you did with that, because I would have educated you on the facts. I would have educated you on why is this something you're doing, and I would have asked him, where are you getting your data from? What are you basing this on? What research are you looking at? And I would have provided him with the right kind of research in order to educate him on why 441 was a bad idea to begin with. And you know, I want to see you all keep local control. If that means going 4 days, or if that means you know, adding a couple of Fridays here and there, whatever that means. I think that part of, and I've heard some people at the State Department say, well, we've got schools that are going 135 days. Okay, well, have you talked to them about why they're going 135 days? Have you asked them the reasons why they're doing that? What would it do to their school budget if they had to add those 20 some odd days to their calendar? You know, let's go talk to these people before we just step out and start making decisions for them that we have no idea what the repercussions are going to be. And that is the message that I want to get out to all of those that have you know, voted yes on this before educating themselves. Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
I think we have an immediate follow-up.
Yeah.
If
was
you
just
would,
gonna
go ahead. Go ahead, Danny. No, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just want to respond to your original question to Senator Standridge in lieu of the legislature taking trouble. When I ran for office, it was a little bit during the teacher strike, went to the representative that I succeeded and let some of my teachers say, hey, you know, we send you up there to trust you, but now we can't trust you anymore. And I think that likens a little bit what we're here. I believe in listening to and putting my faith in the people that are the professionals and the experts in their particular area. Obviously, State Department of Education, you hope, are the experts in that area and then make sound decisions. Now, when they start listening to certain entities, certain group of entities, and ignoring the group as a whole, then that does become a problem, and that is when maybe, yes, we may possibly need to go to the table and rethink exactly how those rules will be established. So I think there is some merit to what you're saying. I don't want to say that in a threatening manner at all towards State Department of Education, but it's something that, you know, if we're going to put our trust in them to take care of business correctly, then that's what they need to do. So, and I'm like, just echo what Representative Conley says, you know, I'm a strong believer in local control. That's because I think nobody knows, you know, what's best for your community than you yourself. And I don't have a problem with accountability. You know, if they want us to be accountable, I know Mr. Solomon and all superintendents, principals, teachers, you know, they have expectations for their students. They're not, you know, trying to put a watered down form of education out there to their students, but there's so many things, I'm a former principal, there's so many things out of our control. Two of the ones that I have a personal problem with is chronic absenteeism and graduation rate. When I have to get a school resource officer to go get children out of bed to come to school because I'm worried about that's going to affect my indicator on chronic absenteeism on a school report card, that's ludicrous. I don't care who you are, that's nuts. So that's some things that, like I say, they have some plans in place, I know, to address those things, and that's great, but I think it needs to be taken a step further. Again, I have personal interest in 4-day school weeks. I just want to say that real quickly. I have 3 grandchildren that are school age. 2 of them go right here at Noble Schools. I have a granddaughter and a grandson, and they love the 4-day week. My children love. Now, my grandson's not a fan of math, but that's, here and there. My oldest grandson is in a 4-day school week in Inola. So they are out on Mondays, they're out on Fridays here. Both of my children, my sons and my daughter-in-laws, they're very, very satisfied with it. And like I say, that right there tells me that's a pretty good indicator. So again, that's just where I stand, and I'm out of time, sorry.